This one's an interesting one. I don't have this prepared at all. Usually, like I put some thought into the philos because it's usually what it was. So I did what I normally do. I just didn't really I just chilled yesterday. I was like, I could meditate on a few things. I didn't expect to share this with you guys today. I did not. So let's talk about it. I want to talk about David in the Bible. The story of David, the story of King David. And King David is interesting, and I think it just relates. It relates to me a lot. It relates to you guys a lot in the funniest ways possible. And we're going to talk about failure. I want to talk about failure and responsibility. That's the story of it, because this is the same David who he killed the giant. This is the David and Goliath, the same one. And it's wild. Yeah, it gets very deep, because this is what I want to talk about first. Like, how can one guy defeat the giant? He was Samuel picked him out. This guy was anointed by God. This is the guy that God chose. God loved him. God said he was a prophet, a king. He had all of this stuff going for him. Did all of this great things. He could talk to God. Like, this guy was regarded, like, again, in other religions and history will regard him as very similar. King David is important. And it's just interesting because if you know King David's biggest failure, it's quite savage. And that's, like, very savage, honestly. And, I mean, here's the message for some of you guys. I hope you know that, like, you have to know how to handle with mistakes realistically. Some of you will slay the giants in your life, but then other giants will get you. And at the same time, it's how do you remain in that? How do you move forward? How can you be good and bad at the same time? How can you aim to be the best person after you've just YOLO'd all of your money on weeklies? How can you say I'm chosen to be this and I'm doing this? I just did all of this great stuff, but then one mistake could take it away from you guys. And a lot of us have been there. And that's kind of the point to this, honestly, is, like I said, it's personal responsibility. Again, I'm not going to give you anything here to, it's nice to think about, it's nice to talk about, but a real big wave I've been on is practicality at the end of the day. So all of you guys, regardless of your background, you should be able to apply this in some way, shape, or form. It's just like, how is it practical? How can I fail miserably in a way, even morally? That's another level, because this is what happened. He became the king, destroyed the giant, was all powerful, prophet, all of this. But what happened? He saw a girl. He saw the most beautiful woman in the world. He was looking at her. He was like, I love this girl. I want to marry her. I love her. So he slept with her, got her pregnant, and this is in the Bible. This is the best. That's why I'm like, dude, think about how savage. This is God's divine pick. God picked this dude. Oh, come on. That's why some of you are living out. Some of you don't think. Some of you judge people on what you think. Like, God, you can't understand who he. Like, literally, you can't understand that. You really, really can't understand that. And he literally goes and he kills her. He doesn't kill her. He kills her husband because he got her pregnant, and then he didn't want to tell him, so he got her husband killed because he's like, oh shit, I got her pregnant. He's going to find out that it's not his son. So her husband came back and he was like, go take a day off and spend the night with your wife. So he was trying to trick the army guy who just slept with his wife. He wanted him to think that he got her pregnant instead of it was him. Wild, scandalous, dude. Just straight, bro, the most, like, savage, bro, if you really think about it. And, like, this is in the Bible. And this is what he did. This is the chosen guy slayed Goliath. And this is where it gets even better. And think about this. It was his general, a high-ranking one, and the guy was so loyal to him. The guy was so loyal to David that when David was like, go take a day off, spend time with your wife, relax, he said no. He said, I got to win this war from you. I got to win this war for you. I'm so committed to it. And I would feel bad if my men are out there on the field and we need to fight for you. He said, I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay here. And he's like, oh, shit. So he thought he was going to scheme his way out of this. Thought he was going to, he's like, all right, I just got her pregnant. He's going to think it's his kid. Boom, we good. And then the guy's like, nah. He's like, I love you so much, David. I'm so loyal to you and your cause. Even if my wife was the most beautiful person, I don't even care. He's like, I'm not gonna do that. So now David's like, oh shit. It's crazy. So what does he do? Even worse. Like we all do. You all get into a situation, hits you by surprise. Instead of put God into it, maybe own up to the mistake before it gets bad. What do we do? Oh, we dig the hole deeper, baby. So he takes it to another level. He said, well, damn, I can't get him to go see his wife. I got to eliminate him. So he goes and sends him on the front lines, knowing he'll get killed, knowing that if he put him there, one of his best, this guy's the most loyal to him. Think about how loyal he was to him. And he goes and sends him on the front lines, and then he gets killed. Ta-da. Damn. Sad. But isn't that a real question, though, to ask? Like, how is that God's person? How did God, why would God choose that? And that's what he did. And now the next question is, what happens after that? Like, did that ruin his legacy? Did that stop him from doing stuff? Like, does that mean he's not choked? Like, what? Like, it's weird. There's many deep meanings into it, but you just got to think about that. But at one point, what's the next? Oh, Nathan comes, the prophet, and this is the funniest part. Nathan comes up to him, this prophet of God, and says, "Hey, there's a man who has 99 sheep, but then he went to a poor servant and killed his only sheep. What should we do to that man?" That's what Nathan said to the King David at the time. And he literally comes back. King David said, show me this man. He said, show me this man so I could kill him. That man should have death. And then Nathan said, well, you're the man. That was you who I'm talking about. Isn't that funny? See, some of us, if somebody said back to you what you did in another scenario, you would be very, very quick to judge them, right? If I was like, oh, that guy blew up his long term, this guy, he was doing so good, gambled away his money, he fell into drugs, he fell into this, he did that. Some of you would be like, oh, he deserved it. Oh, yeah, give him the death. All of you ready to put the gavel down on everybody. Give him the death. But reality, if David, he said, that's you, dude. Nathan was telling him, he's like, you could have anything. You have all of this stuff. You could do all of this. You had somebody even, and this is why. Why do you think God got so mad? God got mad at him. And pretty much what ended up happening, this is where it gets very, very, very interesting. And this is kind of practicality. He went and he started, the kid was going to die. So again, she got pregnant. The kid was going to die. And starts dying. He said, I'm not going to give you this kid now. And he's like, no. He starts praying instantly. He's like, I know God may change his mind, but eventually he didn't. The kid died. God has helped David with so many things, but not this one. Isn't that crazy? God gave this guy, made him a king, which again, chosen by the prophets, everything, gave him all of this stuff. Isn't that funny how God sometimes too? I feel that in my life. I've had so many, he'll give me this, he'll bless me with this, I had this, I got this, but there's some little spots in life, just certain things you don't get. That's just how it is. If this was one thing David was not going to get. He was not getting this kid. No. Why? It's principle. It's not only that David did wrong and David did some evil shit, but more so, think about the concept. it was the principle. David violated somebody who was just so loyal to him. It wasn't like, honestly, it wasn't just like adultery. It wasn't just like, you know what I'm saying? No. It's not only that, just how he behaved, the entitlement, but the loyalty, the love and loyalty that somebody had towards him and with God and everything and how he did it. That's why he got pissed off. God's saying, you're crazy. Straight betrayal. But again, this is the weirdest part. We're talking about David. That's what nobody gets. You're talking about one of the best men in the Bible. Again, even the best part about this, God eventually, it's funny how this story leads into one of my favorite things. And even then, he never even called her by her name after that. From ever on, it was always Uriah's wife. That's who she was. The guy he killed's wife, always. Even after he was dead. But again, God eventually, he had a heart for David. Yeah, exactly. David was literally labeled in the Bible a man after God's own heart. And he just did that over some punani? That's crazy. Wild. But the level of savagery and deceit, betrayal, wrong, evil, just wild. But he eventually, God forgave him, gave him all this stuff back. Not everything back, but what did he give him? It's funny how it led into Solomon. He let him have another kid with her, and it ended up being that's where Solomon came from. The kingdom of God, the bloodline of God was even created through a guy flawed like David, but then that sin and this whole drama even led to Solomon, which is amazing, but it's wild. So I guess this brings up the point, like I was saying, like, have you ever turned from this? Have you ever, or pretty much, can you do something wrong and still be chosen? Can you still be blessed? Can you still have the love of God and the favor of God with you? That's one of the questions. I would say yes, but it's hard to realize, and it's hard, especially like the judging other people. We'll say that probably about us, but would we say that about other people? Again, if I gave you your situation as somebody else, would it really be the same? Honestly, though, come on. I know it's easy to say yes right now. It's easy to say, yeah, we all could be like this, but why do you think you get negativity? Like, why do you think you get doubt and anxiety? It's because you do stuff or something happens, and what do you start thinking? Probably the same exact thoughts. How can I do this if I'm like this? Well, I just failed on that. If I failed like that miserably, it must have been because I'm this. Honestly, I must have done evil because I'm evil. I'm sure we're humans. It's very simple to draw that conclusion. So think about that. But then the next part is how did David respond? This is what he did. He was crying. And he was praying. He started grieving. He put black clothes on. He would pray every single day. When he heard the kid was going to die from Nathan, he was like, no. He's like, I'm going to try to convince God. Day after day, the kid got worse. And then eventually, the kid died. And his servants were in the corner, and they didn't know what to do. So they started whispering, and they're talking to each other, and they're like, yo, man, if David's acting like this and the kid is still alive, what's going to happen when we tell him he's dead? But what ends up happening is David sees him in the corner, and he sees him whispering, and he put two and two together. He was like, okay, the kid's dead. So he asked him. He says, is the kid dead? And then they said, yeah. And then he said, okay. Then he got up, changed his clothes, cleaned up, and moved on. It was the weirdest thing ever. One of the weirdest things ever. He anointed himself. That's what one of the phrases is. Isn't that weird? But that's kind of the point. He was distraught about it. You had to take responsibility. That was part of it. Why do you think he felt how he felt? Even asking God, even some of you, that's what I'm saying. That's what this story represents. That's what I'm trying to tell. This is the deepest part about it. This is the part I love about it. because this is one of those situations in life where no matter which way you look at it, you were wrong. You all know, some of you know what I'm talking about. Please don't. Some of you are fake, but some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where you've been in a situation and there's no way around it. It was your mistake. That's it. You can't blame anybody. You can't blame where you came from. You can't blame anything. It's just at the end of the day, you fucked up and you did what you did was what you did. And if you did it differently, it would have been better, but you fully single-handedly destroyed that situation. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is what this scenario is. It's totally absolute. You can't even change this angle to say anything. There's no justification. He literally messed it all up. Crazy. So that's why. So why do you think, in that point, it makes sense with how you handle those situations. He's like, my fault. No, that's not how you handle it. But kind of, in a way. He had to take full responsibility with it. And that's kind of where he was at with it. He was sitting there. He was grieving because he knows at that point, there's only two options from there. There's either going to be mercy or there's not. It's either going to get fixed or it's not. You can't go back. There's no going back to a degree. And that's essentially what he was waiting for. He prayed, and once the kid was dead, and he knew the door was closed. But he got back up. And now this is the main point. Why did he do that? Like, why would you go from freaking out? The worst thing happens. You would think he would have lost it. But then he gets up, cleans himself off, washes his face, stops grieving, and gets back to king business. After that, he even goes and sees her again, and that's how Solomon is conceived. Wild. But why and how? Why is that practical? And it makes sense why he was David. It makes sense why David was King David, why he was anointed by God and all that. He knew he did wrong. There's a reason why he was in the position he was, why he was grieving and all that, but the minute he knew it was over. You have to keep moving forward, but it's also, the key is getting clean. That's what he did. He cleaned himself off. You have to. This was the point I heard this. So this is from T.D. Jakes. He said, wash your face. And I agree. I love it. It's not erase the past, but the idea is you can't come into the honor. You can't approach king business. You can't start doing it. Yes, there's always going to be a damn consequence. But you're not going to stand into the presence of God. You're not going to ever move past, like this is what I'm saying, practicality. Some of you need to move on. You're never going to move on from something if your face is covered in dirt and you have scars and all this stuff is covering you from what you just went through, even if it was your fault, even if you fully caused it or anything. God's not going to have a conversation with somebody who keeps bringing up the past. God doesn't do that unless it's positive. He'll remind you the good he did, but he's not here to remind you of the past, honestly. But you can. God may not remind you, but you will. He had to accept responsibility, say this. That's what happens. You know why some of you never could clean your face? You could never clean it off? Because you never saw it. That's what I'm saying. So you have not taken responsibility yet. So if you've never taken responsibility, you're never going to see the dirt, and how it comes up is interesting. But at one point, he can't move on. He can't get to that next level until he's just like, hey, this is what I've done. I have this dirt, but moving forward, you can't approach these new situations. You're not going to move on with dirt on your face, wearing these clothes like you're grieving, and oh man, and keep bringing this up. It would have stopped him from anything, but let alone God. That's just not how God functions. So again, it makes sense why it was David, because he could have just kept crying. He could have been angry. He could have, who knows what he could have done? Who knows what we would have done, right? A lot of people spiral out of control, is it not? We make a mistake. You can't change something. You can't go back. You'll spiral out of control. Welcome to the stock market, baby. Come on. I've seen it a lot. Hey, man, it's a hell of a thing to live with. And I could only imagine what you have to live with. You could only imagine what I have to live with. But that's the point. It was like embracing positivity. You're never going to embrace it until you are able to take responsibility and move on in that way. Because again, it didn't really, and I hope you see it fucked up, but it didn't change who he was. It didn't change what was meant for him. It didn't really change that anointing, that special thing about him. And I hope some of you guys realize that too with some of you. Maybe that's why we weren't supposed to have this. Maybe somebody, I don't know. Maybe somebody's tripping out. SPY low ticker's popping off right now. Get ready. But honestly, maybe somebody in here, man, that's just what it is. You did something and you just keep beating yourself up over it when it's just like, hey, you got something ahead of you. But if you're going to keep focusing on, like, it's just not going to, like, we get it now. I hope you get it. I really do. But some of you think you are somebody else now, or you think you are different because of a mistake you've made. You are literally letting it define you, or even worse, maybe your future. Like, maybe that's why the philos are weird for you. Honestly, maybe that's why you're like, oh, God, and this and that, because maybe you hear God, you get a little bit doubtful. That's why I said be careful of that doubt. It makes sense, though, because you're like, damn, I just did that. I remember a few months ago, a year ago, but I still did this, and, like, that's still, like, how could I? It's the same mentally, same phrases. SPY coming down here. Philly implementing another curfew for Friday night. No. But I don't know. Philly is because of riots, not because of COVID. So, but I don't know if the market will make the distinction. God don't want to rehash old stuff if you're genuinely sorry. That's radical forgiveness. I like radical forgiveness, but I don't know. But the point is, you can't approach any new situation with that on you. And you can't approach it where who knows what is going to happen. That's what he did. That's what David did. He didn't know. He knows God enough where he says, I don't know, but maybe God has grace and this and that. All he said, right when he knew it was the prophet said this is going to happen, he said, well, I know how God works. I'm going to pray. Maybe he'll hook me up. So you don't know. Maybe if you get that, maybe your baby doesn't die. Amen. That's what it is. But if it does, what's going to happen? How are you going to move on from that? But are you going to come back? Because he can't use you. That's it. It's as simple as that. This whole time you've had a plan, a destiny, all of this. You guys do this stuff. Yes, you made a mistake. Maybe that was part of the plan. But then you go, and if you're looking at that the whole time and keep that on you, you're not going to be able to go. And if you start doubting what you were built for because of what you did in the past, then you'll get clapped. Apple low of the day, that's key. Take a look. Remember, this is what it took us the first time. Remember, it didn't drop on the first drop, but now we're there, and now Apple's with it. God forgives, but there's still consequences. So it's interesting, but I think for some of you guys, get your attitude ready. I mean, don't let the past hold you back. It may have sucked on what it is, but then also too, I would be very, be careful to judge something, right? Be careful to judge something, and that's even yourself mainly before anybody, yourself, because like it's saying, it just doesn't. I think the biggest part that sticks out to me, whether it's like wash your face, whether it's about, how he handled it, honestly, this is why I'm sharing it with you. The savagery of this story, it's just like, that's why I love God. I can't understand it. And maybe that should it should be encouraging for some of you guys to know that regardless of what you've done, you may have something, you don't know what your plan is. And that's like, it's not negative. Even if you've done negative, it doesn't mean it's negative. Because how in the world is God's dude, his guy, a man after his own heart. That was the evil shit he was on. That's what he did. His actual physical, a murderer, a killer. Like getting chicks pregnant that wasn't his chick. Like what? And that guy was a divine entity of God in a way? Come on. That right there. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, damn. That just had me thinking, and it just, we got to understand that in a way. That's what I was thinking. But I was like, that's interesting. Come on. How's he like that? Come on, God. He's supposed to be dead. So, I like it all. That I related to original sin. Nah, because this is just real life. It's not like, okay, you're born into sin. This is saying that even go read this, depending on where you saw David in the Bible, it's crazy. In the beginning or in the end or in the middle, he had different times, but his destiny and what he did was always there and solidified. But this isn't original sin. This is as human as it gets. This was just real life. This dude is out here scheming, being shady, plotting, stealing, killing, like just straight up. It's like he didn't bite an apple and do all this. Like, nah, he set up this dude's wife. And he set up this wife's husband and then got her pregnant. Are you kidding? That's crazy. That is premeditated in the court of law. Him killing Uriah was premeditated, and it was a crime of passion. Yeah, and this guy's the direct line of blood to Jesus. So, I don't know. So, it just got me thinking, though. But that was positive. Because I was like, wow. Who am I to judge anybody else? But then at the same time, myself. But at the same time, it's not a free pass to do whatever you want. It's not. Don't get that twisted. It's really the practicality of you're going to mess up. The difference between what's going to make you divine or not, or living out your destiny, is if you carry it with you, or if you wash your face, could recognize it, clean up your act, clean up your faith and face, and move on from there. But not let your past dictate, the negative past dictate where you're at now. So it's interesting. So I don't know. I thought about that one. I heard it yesterday, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it's bittersweet. Shows the reality of life. Shows the confusingness of God and who he chooses. But then it's also kind of hopeful in the sense of, maybe we got a little bit more hope than we think. Maybe that mess up wasn't that bad. But then at the same time, if I'm still carrying that mess up with me and thinking about it, that's not how you move forward. That's not how the other kid was born. So find the balance. I don't really know what I could tell you. I wish I could give you something actionable besides that. The only thing practical is clean your face. You got to recognize if it's dirty or not and then move on. And just because you did something bad, divinely speaking to the book, that's a pretty high bar for you to beat. And still, he was still king. So I don't know. So think about that. And I hope you make good decisions moving forward. And I hope you don't cry over spilt milk too long. Because maybe there's something bigger than it. So that is your philosophy, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you guys are subscribed. We're live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes before open. Drop your thumbs up on the video. You're on mobile, press hi chat, X out the chat. Hit the thumbs up button. Second link for the nightly Watch This main channel. First link for the Scrib Alerts Bootcamp and Real Estate course. Follow me on Instagram at The Trading Fraternity. Keep it positive and respectful. Actually, let me give you another. I want more. This isn't about hygiene. You see, I love it. This is an analogy, like we're talking about something different and it sounds like something. This is another thing I heard. Are you ready? I'm going to hit you with another one. Just let me hit you with another one real quick. Because this is why. You guys, I said it. You guys are chosen. But like, this is the difference. Are you ready? There's two types of people on the world. Have you ever heard a narrow path and a wide path? It says that in the Bible. It says the road of life is a narrow path with briars and gates. It's very difficult. Very difficult to say I'm going to live a perfect life. Even look at David. Imagine having abilities and power, everything you could do, but to maintain and follow that narrow road. Very, very difficult. It's more easier to fail. That's a wide path to go live your life and do it. So what does that mean, though? Because I know it's like you could apply it to the biblical standard, but that's very difficult. It's very simple in a broad sense. This is the difference between people. Some people hear stuff, they take it literally. Some people hear stuff, they hear more. This is how you separate it. There's a wide path and a narrow path. It is how you view life. There's two types of people. Some people, that's why it'll make sense. Some people realize they're here today on this earth. In your soul, your body, whatever, you're here. You're a temporary visitor here going to a new destination. Apple low before the SPY. That's crazy. Low ticker's picking up here. So think about that. Some of you believe that. And you should know that this is temporary. You realize there's something beyond even your earth, whatever. What is the other group of people? It's people who believe this is all it is. That's it. That's why I love it. It's a narrow and wide path, because I'm not even bringing up God or Jesus or anything. Because think about it. There's some people, you believe in rocks, horoscopes. Some people believe other stuff, whatever it may be, but they would fall on the narrow path, believe it or not, where they at least understand a level of spirituality, consciousness, that they're just not, there's more to the shit you see here. That's it. But then the wide path is where a lot of people will fall on, and that's it. You could tell them anything you want. They could hear anything. It is what it is. They're like, oh, well, we're just life. It says few find that path. So think about that. And some of you are in the wide path and on the narrow path. It's easier to that's it. It's easier to stay here and think about that. But congrats if you're on the other one. So there you go. There you go. Now, follow me on Instagram, @TheTradingFraternity. Keep it positive and respectful. I love you all. Market's coming down. Watch Apple. It's going to get interesting. Facebook's back down too. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Shout out to Philo.